Hello, Tom Simmons here with another installment of our Business 111 video series. And with this video, we are going to begin looking at the issue of management. Now, management is obviously a very broad subject. It's the subject of entire courses. We're going to narrowly focus on the planning function of management in this particular video. And just to get started, let's agree on a general definition of management. It's been said that management is a process designed to achieve an organization's objectives by using its resources effectively and efficiently in a changing environment. And that definition really encompasses so many of the different aspects of management. And when you think of management, I think sometimes people think of it as going to work and telling employees what to do and putting out crises as they occur. But management is actually a much broader topic than that. And good management is not just telling employees what to do and not just putting out the brush fires as they occur. Good management is effectively using the organization's resources to actually achieve its objectives. And one organization, of course, that uses the word management in its very title is FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is the federal agency that responds to crises, to natural disasters, to the California wildfires, to floods, to hurricanes, to earthquakes, to volcanoes. And if you think about it, what goes into responding to those natural disasters is incredibly complicated. There are a series of objectives to fulfill, such as stopping the spread of the disaster if possible, saving human life, protecting property. In the midst of doing all of that, you need to bring in workers to do that, and you need to house them, and you need to feed them, and you need to pay them, and you need to provide them with the tools that they're going to need, and perhaps the energy that's required to use those tools in an emergency where there are no other energy sources. And you're coordinating with police departments and fire departments and hospitals and maybe schools and local governments. It's a very, very complicated process, and it just doesn't fall into place. It just doesn't happen on its own. It requires a serious amount of proactive planning, of putting a plan or several plans in place, in being flexible when the situation changes, and in executing those plans to achieve your objectives. So FEMA is a very good example of the importance of management skills as well as the breadth of management skills. Now, on a less dramatic level, every business has got to engage in those same activities, those same plans, in naming their objectives and deciding how they're going to get their objectives accomplished, in dealing with things that are unexpected, that happen in the midst of it, in keeping to a timeline so they actually reach their goals. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a very brief trip, 2 or 3 minutes, to Nanette Lepore Fashion Designers. And I've referred to Nanette Lepore in previous videos. She is a fashion designer in the Garment District of New York City. And we're just going to look at just a very brief clip out of their day where they're looking at producing a single garment, which doesn't sound complicated from the outset, but actually involves a myriad of very complicated processes that need to be coordinated together. So let's go off to Nanette Lepore's Design Studio.
So this is our 4:30.
Oh wow!
This is our 4:30, and we're actually making this now, and we'll ship at the end of the month. So as you probably can't really notice it here, but you might notice it a little bit more here. This is one quality, and this is another quality. So there's an animal, and then this is a circle. So we like to pick the same manufacturer to produce the same quality because the color will come out a little bit more correctly than having it with two different mills. We had an experience where the agent never informed us that it's two different mills making two different fabrics, so the colors never matched. And we had, at the end, they had to fix it, and they did what they had to do.
They base it on a die number?
The Pantone
they
number?
submit, well, I don't know if Nanette does Pantones. I think she does really her own.
She doesn't do Pantone. Sometimes she'll just find a little piece of fabric and just say, I want that color, and that becomes standard. Sometimes it's a piece of yarn.
Yeah,
She doesn't follow Pantone.
right now had to change a yarn. I had to tell a fabric supplier, well, here's a yarn and I need this color fabric.
That's
Which
how
is
it is around
interesting,
here.
and you know, but they brought back to me. So this is for an example, and everything is very particular down to the button to match and lining to match, and then, well, this is sheep, but on
This is a
some
sample. So
other.
this is actually a good thing of what it should not look like, because if you notice how the blues don't match, if this was production, that would be rejected. But I mean, for sampling, we have to just dye it here, so.
Which we have a dye lab in the back.
Yes, which
And
are
the girls
interns.
hand dye it.
Learn how to hand dye it.
Awesome.
Yes.
And then what we normally do is design will work with sales and myself, and we take one fabric off the line, and it should be like, whether it be a base cotton or base poly, whatever it is, and that's the standard each and every mill gets that has the color, that they have to color coordinate to. And then the trim works around that same swatch. And then they submit lab dips, head of sales will approve the design, the lab dip color, and the lab dip must match production. 9 out of 10 times we give color allowance, but I don't give a big color allowance. They have to pretty much match it.
Okay, well, we're back from our brief trip to the Garment District in New York, and what you saw was a very, very brief clip, really just dealing with color matching on a particular garment. Now, think of all the processes before and after what you just saw. Someone designed a garment, then once they designed it, the patterns to make multiple garments had to be made, and they had to be, and there's sleeves, or there's trim, and there's buttons, and there's front pieces, and there's back pieces, and there's linings, and there's size 4 and size 6 and size 8 and size 10, and patterns have to be made for every one of those, and then they have to be cut, and then they have to be assembled, and they have to be dyed, and all of these pieces are going to different places, and we're hoping to get the exact same color so it all matches. And that whole discussion centered around the fact that there was an unexpected glitch in actually making sure that each of the mills was using the exact same color for the garment they were producing. And then after all of that work is done, then it still has to be sent out to stores and ticketed and labeled and packaged up. It's a very complicated process, and every business actually has a very complicated set of processes in place. If you run a restaurant and you have to make sure that your vegetables are coming in, your meat is coming in, and your cook is coming in at the right time, and your sous chef is there early enough to prepare the goods for that night's meals, and your beer taps have been cleaned, and you've got the gas tanks to run them, and you've actually filled up your oil tank or your propane tank. Many different processes. So how do we make this manageable? We make it manageable through the planning process, and there are 4 different types of plans that all businesses should have. And they are the strategic, the tactical, the operational, and the contingency. And so let me focus on each one of those in particular. The strategic plan comes from usually the very top of the organization. And it's really very, very simple. It's often not more than a few sentences. Think of the strategic plan as the goal. Where do we want to be in 5 years? What is our absolute end goal for this company. It might be we want to double profit over the next 5 years. It might be we want to be profitable within the next 2 years. It may be something such as we would like to be the go-to kitchen store in this 3-state region by this year. So it could be, very inwardly focused, very financial focused, or it could be the status you want to achieve. You want to have the largest market share in a particular business, but it is the overall goal. And the reason you have a strategic plan, which is really, again, just a few sentences, is because you want to know what are you all working towards? What should your marketing be working towards? What should your managers be working towards? The whole company needs to understand what is the end goal, so they're just not wandering here and there. And during the course of expansion and growth, an opportunity may present itself that really does not further your goal. At which point, rather than just say, hey, here's a great opportunity, let's grab it, you want to sit down and say, does this meet our strategic plan? And if not, why would we do it? Now, it may be that you will change your strategic plan down the road. But as long as you're sticking with it, engaging in activities or operations that don't further that goal are just going to be an expense that are not going to get you where you want to go. So you have your strategic plan. What do we want to be in 5 years? The next step is the tactical plan. And the tactical plan asks the question, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do to get to that goal, to meet our strategic plan's goal? Now, this is the area, this is the kind of plan where everyone sits around in a room and has great ideas. And if you've ever been in a group, and it doesn't matter whether it's a school group working on a project, or working on the board of a nonprofit in town, or working in a business, you sit around and you brainstorm and you come up with all of these great ideas. How are we going to achieve our goals? Well, we're going to contact every single person in a 10-mile radius with our marketing message. We are going to have once a month big free events to attract people to our store. We are going to launch an ad campaign that will reach people who go to NASCAR and baseball events. And you brainstorm and you come up with all these great ideas of all the things you could do. I've seen students do this when planning trips for the spring break. Let's go to Florida and let's get a bus to do it, or let's get a train to do it, and you come up with all of these great ideas. All of that is necessary, and all of those ideas constitute the tactical plan, the tactics you're going to use to get to your goal. The problem is having great ideas and talking about really cool things that you can do to reach your goal doesn't get you there. And most plans, most management plans, if they fail, this is where they fail. They think that by talking about the great ideas and brainstorming them and being in agreement somehow makes them happen. Well, they don't just happen. That's where the third plan comes in. The third plan is called the operational plan. And this, I would argue, is probably the single most important part of the planning process altogether. The planning process says, okay, great, so we've decided that in order to generate more interest in our store, we're going to have a once a month free event. Maybe we have a kitchen store. We sell kitchen appliances. like mixers and all sorts of foodie appliances. And we've decided that once a month, we're going to have a demo in the front of the store where someone's going to cook something or make a pie crust or teach people how to do something in the kitchen. And we're going to advertise it. And we're going to get people to come in, and it's going to be free, and they can actually do it along with us. The operational plan says who, or asks the question, who is in charge of this? What types of programs are we going to have? When are they going to be occurring? How far in advance are we going to have that nailed down so that we can market it? Who and how are we marketing that event? Who is in charge of rearranging the front of the store so that person can come in and actually do it? Who is in charge of taping down the electric cords if those are needed so that no one trips over them? Who is in charge of putting together the information of what is happening when so that our public relations people can get that information out to the radio stations or to the newspapers or to whatever other forms of media we've decided to use to promote this event? It is extremely specific. Who is doing what steps? When are they doing it by? Who are they reporting to? What order do these different things have to be done in order to make sure that every single thing is in place? If you are the manager, if you are the person working in the store who is running around at the last second when this is supposed to occur because you forgot half a dozen things, that's an issue with the operational plan. The operational plan needs to be a timeline of who, what, when, where, why, what, of how everything is getting done. And the good manager is not hovering over every employee and constantly micromanaging everything they're doing, but they are making certain that the different benchmarks, the different milestones in this plan are being met on an efficient basis, on a cost-efficient basis, and according to the timeline that's been established to make sure that this actually happens and is pulled off and is successful and promotes the strategic goal of the company. So for your operational plan, that's where most people, whether it's their daily life, their schoolwork, their business, their volunteer work, this is where things begin to fall down, because we say to ourselves, well, I have a plan, I'm going to get out of debt in about 2 years, or I'm going to buy a car, or pick your goal. And they really want to do it, and they really have it in their heart that, yes, I'm going to do this. Well, what are the specific steps you're going to take to make it happen? It ain't going to happen because you really, really want it to happen. It's going to happen when you're specific and when you are forced to put that in writing. You can't hedge your bets. You can't say, well, I'll get around to that in a week or two. I know I have to do it. No, you're not going to get around to it in a week or two. You're going to say, I am going to call these 5 people to resolve these 5 issues on Tuesday of this date. No discussion. It's got to be specific. If it's not specific, it's not going to happen. Now, that is called the operational plan, or executing your plan. There's one last type of plan that is related to all 3 of these, and that's called the contingency plan. And the contingency plan is what you have in place when the unexpected happens. Now, you may ask, well, how do I expect the unexpected? Well, there's a few different ways that you actually can do this to some extent and plan ahead for it. Sometimes things are disasters happen. A building burns down. A supplier someone who you are really relying heavily on to supply your store or your operation with certain goods goes bankrupt, or they have a fire or a disaster. Well, you may not expect that, but your contingency plan could be that you always have a backup. Because you haven't just said, well, we have a great supplier, so we don't have to worry about it. You've continually updated your list of potential suppliers, and you've initiated contact with them, and you have a relationship with them, so that if something happens to your main supplier, you have a seamless move to someone new. You can plan to do that. You do it if you have a computer and you choose to back up your files. That is a contingency plan. Because what you're saying is, if for some reason my computer gets fried, or it breaks down, or it doesn't work, or I don't have it, or I drop it, or whatever it is, I've got these files backed up in some other place where I can still access them. Otherwise, your entire database of customers is lost, or all of your orders, and your business is at a complete loss. So backing up a computer is a contingency plan. The other thing you can do is to build in the idea that something's going to go wrong right into all of your other plans. So for instance, if you need to get something done by Sunday night, you don't start at 11:30 p.m. on Sunday to get it done because you think you can, knock it out quick. People get flat tires. Dogs get sick. People get sick. Computers crash. Electricity goes out in a storm. There are an innumerable number of events that could impact your ability to deliver on whatever task it is you're supposed to execute. And saying, well, I didn't expect this to happen, is not an excuse and does not cut it. The only way to plan for that is if something is due on Sunday, then you arrange your operational timeline so that you've got it done on Wednesday or Thursday, so that if something does go wrong, you've got breathing room. I used to work for a government agency in Southeast Massachusetts, and we used to get large grants, $80,000, $50,000, in order to undertake certain activities. One year it was to hire someone to redesign the harbor front in Oak Bluffs, Massachusetts. And we had this large amount of money to award to a landscape architect to design a whole brand new harbor with park benches and trees and plazas and all sorts of things like that. This is a legal document. We have to go out to bid for it. In other words, we put a notice out saying any landscape architect who wants to bid on this money, you've got to have a proposal in, and it's got to be in by 12 noon on a certain date. Well, I got to tell you, 12 noon on that date is a legal deadline. And if your landscape architecture office has been working for months putting a proposal together, it's worth $80,000 to your office. It employs people. Your entire office has put their heart and soul into this. And you tell me, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't get there by 12 noon because there was a traffic jam. But I'm here at 5 minutes after 12. Can you take my proposal? The answer is no. I can't. I can't legally take your proposal. You have just spent weeks, all of your employees' time, all of your effort, all of your expenses, putting together a proposal that I cannot accept, and you've lost. And you've lost because you didn't include an element of contingency planning within your operations. Stuff happens. You've got to prepare for that and build that into your timelines. So, Again, this has been a very brief overview of the planning function of management. But all of these plans, the strategic, what's our goal? The tactical, how are we going to get there? The operational, who's doing it? When are they doing it? Who are they reporting their success or failure back to? And the contingency, what do we do when it doesn't work out the way we expected? All need to be in place. So, this is Tom Simmons, and I'm hoping I encouraged you to have a little more formal and proactive planning into your management functions.